Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a book haul primarily consisting of books that I purchased to treat myself through my injury and my surgery and make me feel better. I did a little bit of retail therapy, and then I also got some amazing gifts sent to me from some of my friends. So I thought for this book haul, since these are probably the books that I'm going to be reading over the next couple of weeks, I thought it would be fun to, as I'm talking about each book, rank them based on my level of excitement to read it. So we're gonna start with the books that I'm the least excited to read, which all of these books are like at the very top of my TBR. So I'm extremely excited to read all of them, but I thought we would start with like what I'm least or moderately excited about to the ones that I am dying to read, to the point where I'm almost scared to read them because of how excited I am. But before we get into the haul, I do want to make a little announcement because I am putting together a video asking readers what their favorite book is. I really wanted to compile a video of book recommendations from you guys, and I thought it would be fun to put this video together. So all I am asking, if you would like to take part in it, is that you send me a very short clip sharing a favorite book. It doesn't have to be like your most favorite book. Don't overthink it. Just a favorite book that you love and tell me why you love it, and then send it to my email right here by this Sunday. I will put all of the details in the description of this video so you can make sure you know what to do. But I'd be so grateful for everyone to send me a clip, and I've already gotten a bunch of clips sent in. And thank you so much for everybody who's already sent me one, especially those of you who are like going out of your comfort zone to send me a clip. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to put this video together. I think it's gonna be great. So yeah, if you'd like to be in that video, send the clip by Sunday, and please try to keep them around 1 minute. A little bit over a minute is fine, but I just wanna keep the clips short. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that that was happening, so if anybody wants to take part, you don't miss out. Okay, so before we get into the ranking, I'm gonna start with this small stack of books that I have already read. The first one that I have here is Lost in the Moment and Found by Seanan McGuire. This was a gift sent to me from Emily, and this is the 8th book in the Wayward Children series? 7th? It's either the 7th or the 8th, but I think that this might be my favorite in the series so far. This is also the darkest book in this series, so definitely go into it knowing it deals with very heavy grooming, child sexual assault themes. It is the darkest book in the series so far. It is very upsetting, but it ended up being one of the most beautiful stories in this series, and I'm just in awe how we are 8 books now into this series and it just keeps getting better and better. Next up, we have a book that I was so excited for, and it ended up being a 1-star. Worst book I read this year. And that is Sister Maiden Monster by Lucy A. Snyder. This is a horror pandemic book following these 3 women who all contract this virus that turns them like into monsters. The premise sounded super cool. It's basically 3 short stories because there's 3 parts, and each part follows a different character and their story, and then they all kind of, you know, come together at the end. I just felt super grossed out. This felt like the type of horror that was being overly violent and shocking and gross just for shock value and not actually for any substance. And then there was a quote in here that felt so offensive. Like, it actually really upset me. I got really worked up. There was a quote in here about one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims who was a child who he tortured and killed, and she makes this very sexual, violent, disturbing comment naming this child, and it just felt so offensive. I literally sat there and I was like, how could someone publish that? Just imagining that person's family potentially reading that, I felt sick. I literally stopped reading. I was like, I can't do it anymore. So yeah, 1 star. Do not recommend it. Even without that quote, it was not a good book. I just don't recommend it at all. I very rarely say I do not recommend a book. I feel like, you know, every book has an audience. This one, no. You can skip it. Then we have Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, which I loved. I gave this 5 stars. I enjoyed this even more than Ninth House, and I'm just loving the series so much. I'm just in love, obsessed. Alex is one of my all-time favorite characters now. You know, the hype is real with this series. And then we have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. This is the Fairy Loot edition. This is actually my very first Fairy Loot, so I'm very excited about that. It's beautiful. Full color map, beautiful. The hardcover, like this is gorgeous. And I'm not gonna talk too much about my thoughts for this yet. This was my book club book and we haven't had our discussion yet. And I like to try to keep my feelings about our books a secret until we do our discussion. But I will give one singular thought, and that is Amina is a MILF and I love her. Okay, now into all of the books that I haven't read, and we're gonna be ranking them starting with the ones that I'm the least excited to read and going to the most excited. But again, I'm super excited to read all of these. So first up, we have a manga, which this is the first manga that I've ever actually owned. This year, I've been trying to step out of my comfort zone a little bit with my reading, and one of the things that I've been doing is reading a lot of translated books, and within that, I've been trying to get into manga. So I've read a few different series so far, and one of them was a series by this author, Shuzo Shumi, and that was Blood on the Tracks, and I really enjoyed that. And so I found this manga, and the cover really drew me in. I believe it's about a vampire. So yeah, this is now the first manga that I've ever owned, and I'm very excited to read this. Okay, next up, I got this really nice package from Bloom Books filled with a ton of Sierra Simone books. And so within that was the Newcastle series. Is that what this is called? New Camelot series. This is a polyamorous series about a woman and her relationship with the president and the vice president, which I'm very, very excited to read this. I've heard that it's messy, that it's really spicy. The only reason that I'm not more excited to read this is that I have heard mixed things, but I do love Sierra Simone so much. I've never read a Sierra Simone book that I didn't love, but I have another series from her in the stack that I am way more excited about. Next up, another series, and that is Lore and Lust, books 1 and 2. This is supposed to be like a cozy, slow burn vampire romance series that was recommended to me. It says that it's an exploration of cultures, contemporary society, and romance. It puts a whimsical spin on traditional vampire lore while also creating a vivid new world where love is love. That just sounds so cute, like a cozy vampire romance. The only downside is there are no audiobooks. You guys know I'm an audiobook girly, but I think for some cozy vampires, I will sacrifice. Next up is The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. This is a sci-fi horror book that just sounds great. I love sci-fi horror and I'm always looking for more to read. This is about the last of humanity who are traveling back to Earth after failing to create a new colony on another planet. And then as they're traveling, something or someone begins picking off the crew members one by one, and the captain has to try to figure out what's going on, protect her crew. That is literally one of my favorite tropes, is the stuck on a spaceship and something is like killing people off. Ugh, I love it. The next book is one that I have never heard about, but if you watched my I Can't Stop Reading Until I Get a 5-Star Book video, the book that I gave 5 stars in that was called Out There, and it is a collection of short stories. So I was kind of looking for more books that are short story collections similar-ish to that, and I came across this one called Man-Made Monsters, but it is by a Cherokee author. It is like a paranormal, supernatural collection. There's stories about vampires and werewolves and zombies, but what's really cool is it is in chronological order following this one Cherokee family through hundreds of years. It is following them from the tribe's homelands in Georgia in World War I, the Vietnam War, to our own present, and well into the future. So it's really cool, and you get a like family tree of this whole family. The first story starts in 1839, and it goes all the way through the last story, which is in 2039. And I just think that's really a cool concept, to have all these short stories that are connected because you're following this one family through centuries, and they're supernatural. I'm very, very excited for this. Next up, I have a romance book that was a gift to me from my really good friend Avery, and that is It Ain't Me Babe by Tilly Cole. This is a book that I have been wanting to read for years. This follows a girl who is escaping a cult, and she comes across this man who is a part of this motorcycle club, and I believe one of them is nonverbal. One of them doesn't speak because of some reason. I have read a couple books by Tilly Cole. She was actually the first author who I read a mafia romance from, and I really enjoyed that, so I've always wanted to get into this series, so I'm very, very excited for that one. Next up, we have a book from one of my favorite romance authors, and that is Laura Thalassa. This is the first book in her new series, Bewitched. This one is a witch romance following the main character who really wants to be accepted into this academy for young witches. And in order to be accepted to this school, she has to go on a quest in the wilderness to connect to her powers. So she books a trip to South America, but then supernatural forces cause her plane to crash. So now she braves the jungle and discovers the source of the attack. She finds herself awakening an ancient evil who mistakes her for his long dead wife, the wife who betrayed him, who he wants to kill. Like, the way I am so excited to read this, I feel like I have yet to find that like perfect, angsty, witchy romance, and I feel like this could be it. I'm so excited for this. Okay, next up we have the other Sierra Simone series that Bloom Books sent me, and that is the Priest series, which I had read Priest many years ago. I believe during one of the first ever Smut-a-thons, I read Priest and I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I think I gave it 3 stars. Like all Sierra Simone books, the smut was really good, but I just didn't feel like a super connection to it. However, as soon as I opened this package, I immediately picked up the second book, Sinner. Oh my God, this is now one of my new like favorite romances. This was so good. It reminded me of why Sierra Simone was one of my favorite romance authors when I first started getting into romance. Book 1, the hero is a priest. Book 2, the heroine is about to become a nun. And then book 3, which I have not read, but I will very soon, the hero in here is a monk. And this one is an romance. Highly recommend it, specifically book 2. But after how much I loved book 2, I'm so excited to read book 3 now. And we kind of got like a little sneak peek of this couple in the second book, and I'm so intrigued by them. Okay, the last 4 books that I have here are all kind of on the same level of I am literally foaming at the mouth to read all 4 of these books. So they're technically all like the #1 book that I want to read, but if we I really had to pick an order. So we have A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is her newest horror release. It's also my book club book for this month, so I will probably be reading this book this weekend. This is a Southern Gothic book, haunted house. It has her, you know, classic trademark, very cozy, quirky style of horror that I really love. You guys know T. Kingfisher is my favorite author. I believe this is gonna be like the 10th book of hers that I have read, and I'm just so excited. Everyone on my Patreon so far has been loving this book, so I do have very high hopes for it. But next up, we have a book that has been specifically recommended to me from 2 of my patrons who I feel like I have very similar reading taste to. And so because of that, I'm very excited to read this, and that is When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill. This is a historical book that follows these 2 girls. The way that they have pitched this to me is literally just like queer girls doing bad things, which is the quickest way to sell me on a book. There's a quote on the inside jacket that says, "Every decent friendship comes with a drop of hatred, but that hatred is like honey in the tea. It makes it addictive." And then, like I said, queer girls doing bad things, we have Big Swiss by Jen Begin. This follows a main character whose job is to transcribe sex therapy sessions, and she becomes obsessed with one of the newest clients. And then one day she's in town and she overhears this woman speaking, and she recognizes that that is the voice of the client from the sessions that she's been transcribing, and she'll do anything to get herself into this woman's life. And it just sounds so good. I've been dying to read this ever since I first laid eyes on this cover. And then lastly, the book that I am the most excited to read, to the point where I'm like kind of scared to read it, that is Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco. Rin Chupeco is kind of a sleeper author for me. I've read several books by Rin Chupeco and loved all of them, but for some reason, whenever I think of like my favorite authors or authors whose books I've consistently loved, Rin Chupeco like never comes into my mind. I don't know why. I think it's because all of their books I've read are YA, and I just don't really think of YA that much anymore. But this, I think, is their adult debut about vampires. We're following a main character who is a vampire bounty hunter. He's kind of an outcast because there is a rumor that he might be half vampire because his mom had an affair with a vampire. And as he is hunting this new terrifying breed of vampires that have sort of broken out in the city, he comes across this vampire heiress and her vampire fiance, and they team up to figure out how to stop this new terrifying breed of vampires. I believe that this is also polyamorous, which also makes me very excited. I feel like this could be the book that like cements Rin Chupeco as one of my favorite authors. So those were all of the books that I have bought and received recently. I gave you guys my ranking. Let me know in the comments what books you are the most excited to hear about or that you want to see in upcoming reading vlogs. Are there any books that you think I should move up in my ranking? And don't forget, if you want to take part in my readers favorite books video, all the information is in the description of what you need to do to send me a video clip to be in the video. The deadline is this Sunday, so you don't want to miss out. Make sure you check out the description and get your clip sent in time. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!